and Kevin Durant is going to be this year's final MVP. I just think Kyrie is is a net. He and not in the same way that you're a net and I'm a net. Like he's a net, and I have so much more appreciation for him today. I don't know if you're as if you're as Jazz. Who else stood out besides Kyrie? We've been giving him too much of an audio pat on the back.
No, I mean, look, I mean, the most important thing about him, the last thing I'll say about him is there were a lot of moments last year and even at the beginning of this year when he was alone and I don't think was looking to like kind of make his teammates better. Maybe it was just a lack of trust or whatever it was.
Right.
And now when he's alone,
it looked like he didn't want to play without KD. It looked like he was like, "Why? What am I doing here if KD's not playing?"
Exactly. No, totally. And now there's a little bit of like he's like, no, like I got this. This is my team. And like, look, he's of the big three, he's the one who has the most trouble when he's alone, as we've seen. The Harden game against the Suns was psychotic, but he really does have a ton of pride in doing it for himself and for the team. And you could tell, I mean, it goes without saying, he doesn't say this he doesn't say this outright, but it's like a show not tell. I mean, he takes the Knicks games personally, which I really like, and always shows up, and especially always shows up late. But in terms of other guys, I think Joe Harris does stuff every game that really impressed me. I think the ability that he has now of like slashing and kicking and finding the open guy, his ability to finish with both hands, I think is super impressive. And by the way, the other thing about Kyrie, which hasn't gone in some small, like really deep dive net fans have noticed this, but his defense has been way better, like way better. Like he has been way more locked in on that end, like to a point that I've never seen that before. I mean, obviously I wasn't watching Cavs and Celtics games very closely, but like
I agree with you. I think he had to feel like it though.
Yeah,
and I also think when superstars have other superstars on the team, like before it was like, if Karis LeVert asked me to play defense, I'm looking at Karis LeVert like, get the fuck out of here, you know, like. But you know, Kevin Durant is asking me to play defense. James Harden, who I probably in my head, if I'm Kyrie in his head, he doesn't think James Harden is a better defender than him. It's Mamba mentality. He just knows that sometimes he doesn't feel like it, and he basically was, and now you're seeing him basically go, you know what? I'm unstoppable on defense too. And you know what else is funny about him? Not to just drag this point. Kyrie really thinks he's a power forward.
Oh yeah.
I want him to stop banging with the bigs. Like, could he stop? That's not what you're here for, King. Like, let the menagerie of big men that we have now bang with other bigs. You just be amazing. Thank you, Kyrie. So, I want you to finish your point on Joe Harris if you didn't.
No, yeah, I mean that was basically. I mean, I just think he's become such a complete offensive guy that, like, I almost don't like anymore when he gets compared to like the JJs and the Kyle Korvers, because on top of the fact that he's as good of a shooter as a lot of those guys were in their primes, like he just does much more than those guys like did. Like he's not like. He influences the game way more. Like those, like he like pump fakes, he slashes, he bodies people. Like like that play yesterday that he should have gotten an and one on. Like he takes contact really well because he doesn't have this like really light frame. He's a big dude. And I think I've consistently felt like he's the fourth most important guy on the team. And look, he also, as we've said, a bunch of times in this podcast and other ones, he is a net. Like he just is.
Yeah. And I'll give I'm gonna shout out James Harden because he only played 4 minutes, but he got a rebound and 3 assists. Like that's a bad man right there. Huh?
Now I just want him to be. We are getting to a point, and I'm not trying to do hysterics or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I assume that Katie will be back either tomorrow or the next game. Like, I
Oh,
would like the
only
three of
do
them
it.
to play together because the thing I'm most concerned about is just like end of games, like what we saw in the Bucks game and the Clippers game.
Mm-hmm.
Like just how the three of them are going to play together when it gets a little tighter. That's like the one thing I really care about. Like we can't blow out and win by 12 against everybody, and we're not going to.
Can I think the cuteness of Bruce Brown at power forward sometimes deceives um, Steve Nash. He's got to stop playing him like this, especially teams like the net against teams like the Knicks who want to
Yeah,
pound you inside. Like the key to winning last night was taking Bruce Brown out of the game. He was who replaced Harden in the lineup. He was the -20 last night, and he just had he didn't have a terrible game, but in the role that he's playing, and he had to get a struggle 5 rebounds in 21 minutes. The 4 points from 2 out of 5 wasn't there, and like he just couldn't stay in front of these bigs, and it put him in a bad situation. And I hope that 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 Steve Nash adjusts from that, because there's an appropriate place where you could see what he is. You got 10 games with him. See what Alize is, and then let the numbers lie where it is. And his numbers are always going to be a little bit elevated from the fact that nobody knows who he is or what he does. The scouting report will come out in 10 games, and then we'll know what he really is. But for right now, you can use Alize Johnson, Steve Nash. Yeah, I'm praying you're a loyal listener and you hear that. Sam, take us out with something important about the future of this Nets team.
the person who I really want to shout out because he's been awesome lately, and all I care about is that he continues it for the playoffs because his playoff numbers are not awesome. Is a ton of credit's got to go to Jeff Green, who's just
Oh
had
yeah,
like an unbelievable season. Like
yeah.
just like I think every Net fan has kind of been waiting for him to go like ice cold or like just kind of look out of it or have a couple just miserable games, and he's I've been thinking in my head. I was thinking for us, but like who are the kind of the 5 or 6 most important Nets this year? And I think after the big three, and you can put those guys in whatever order you want. Durant might be third now at this point, given how few games he's played. But like I think you have to probably have like Harris, Jeff Green, and for me personally, I would put like Tyler Johnson in like the 4, 5, 6 of just like who is really mental. With Claxton, probably will end up being able to pass one of those guys, but I mean, Jeff Green has arguably been as important as Joe Harris, or like a little bit less. He's really just had an unbelievable season, and in some ways, earlier in the season, which we forget now, he really saved them in his ability to play like the 5 or like a stretch 4 type role.
Yeah, no, he's a godsend. He's a godsend. Like Jeff Green, you, these are the things that happens. If people make the mistake of thinking, I think we're gonna win a championship because of the fact that we have Harden, KD, and Kyrie. Yes, that is true. But the Nets are gonna win a championship because Sean Marks drafts really well, and we have Nick Claxton. Because Sean Marks understands how to find, value where nobody else thinks there's value, and brings in those players. And then on top of it, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this. We'll talk about it on another pod. Spencer Dinwiddie coming back. And then on top of it, we have this just great way of finding players that are on the fringe of being NBA players, right? And we're plucking them when they're right. Those things, having Nick Claxton, having Alize Johnson, having Bruce Brown, I would go as far as believing in what they saw in Tyler Johnson and picking him up. Those fortunate moves are the reason why the Nets are going to win a championship. Yo, Sam, anything else before we jet?
No, last thing I just want to ask you, it's a yes or no question. If the Nets are playing, let's say the Nets are playing in the finals, is Spencer Dinwiddie suited up and in a jersey ready to play?
Well, are you asking my reaction to that, or do I think that can happen?
I'm just asking you from an injury prediction. Do you think he will be ready?
Nah, I wouldn't put that pressure on him. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't rule him out because he's Spencer Dinwiddie, and I think that's what he's working towards. I think he wants rings, and I think he wants to be in those championship pictures. Everybody wants to be in a championship picture. I think Karras and Jarrett will get rings from this season, which is weird because I think if you had been on the roster at any time, there might be a games limit. I'm not sure, but Spencer Dinwiddie wants rings. He wants to be a legend, and that's on deck for him for it to happen. So I doubt it happens. I wouldn't put the pressure on Spencer for that to happen. But if anybody could do it, it's him, right?
Yeah.
I'm at Eve Darbouz. This is at Samuel LaChow. We are the Front Office Podcast. It is our pleasure to bring the Nets info to all of you. We will be back